Goal setting is everywhere in the world. We set goals in our careers, our well-being, and our lives in general. A huge part of living a better life is living a life with intention. And one big way that we can live with intention is via setting and achieving goals. However, the biggest pitfall we run into time and time again is actually following through on the goals that we set. And that is what we're going to talk about today. First, we'll talk about some important philosophies in goal setting, because it turns out in this loop of setting, pursuing, and achieving goals that it's actually important to understand first what we're getting ourselves into. Next, we'll talk about some different tools you can use while setting your goals, because it turns out there's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all approach. And finally, and most importantly, we'll talk about how to actually achieve the goals that you set. Goals take sacrifice. Goals are not just something you can add to your already busy life. You're going to need to give up something to pursue a goal. And so for a goal to be worth pursuing, the trade-off of what you need to give up in order to do that needs to be worth the time. Want to start a side hustle? That might mean giving up weeknights on your couch, watching your comfort show, or giving up social events on the weekends. If the trade-offs are worth it, then you know the goal is worth pursuing. Simply put, the more goals you add to your life, the more stress you add to your life, and the more sacrifices you will need to make. In the words of James Clear, everyone wants a gold medal. Few people want to train like an Olympian. Less, but better. Psychologists have this idea they call goal competition. This is the idea that the biggest barrier to achieving your goals is actually the other goals you have. Whenever you pursue one goal, you need to pull time, energy, and attention away from other goals. So statistically, the best way to tackle your goals is to tackle them one at a time. Good goals should be sustainable. One of my favorite methods for this is to set a lower limit for effort and an upper limit for effort. This helps balance us somewhere between lazy and burned out, and is a sustainable model for growth over time. For you and I, if our goal is write a book, this might look like write at least 500 words in a day, but no more than 1,500. Goals should be adjustable. I want to be very specific here. Setting concrete goals that we are pursuing as if they are concrete is important, but setting aside times at different intervals to step back and look at our goals and see, are we on track for this goal? Do we need to adjust to meet this goal? Or do we need to adjust the goal itself? Maybe the situation has changed and the goal is no longer relevant. There would be no need to continue pursuing the same goal. It's also important to mention that just like everything in self-improvement, goal setting is not a one-size-fits-all approach. It's as personal as the goals that you are setting. So feel free to adapt and adjust any of this to fit your life. So next, I want to talk about a method for setting goals. The method I personally use is something I call the top-down approach. This starts very wide, big picture, and shrinks all the way down, step by step, to daily actions. Values. This process starts with figuring out or reviewing your personal core values. I believe that knowing your values is the first and most important step in living a better life. Once you know your core values and start living in alignment with them, that is when things really start to change. This is where your life becomes an aligned system from the top all the way down to your daily actions. If you don't know where to start, I have a video about this. I will link it up in the card and down in the description. Lifetime goals. This is perhaps the most overwhelming part of the whole process. So a step down from your values is asking, what do I want to achieve in my lifetime, or at least by some specific distant age? I don't know is a perfectly legitimate answer to this question, but at least take some time and think about it. I've broken this down into a few different categories over different areas of your life that could help you think through this process. I found it very easy to come up with answers for some of these, and then others took quite a bit more thought. The other thing is you don't have to have a goal in each of these areas. Just to give one example, under attitude, I know that I don't want to be a grumpy old man. I feel that tendency inside of me, and so I want to pursue not being like that. But I like to state my goals in a positive way rather than a negative way. So instead of saying, I don't want to be a grumpy old man, I want to say, I will be a person who is kind, understanding, and warm. Next, we move down to our 5 to 10 year goals. This is where we can actually start setting tangible things that work towards those lifetime goals. It's also important to know that these long-term goals, the lifetime goals, and the 5 to 10 year goals will likely shift and adjust as time goes on. That's perfectly okay, but it gives you a direction to aim for in the shorter term. At this point, this idea is feeling pretty nebulous, but don't worry, I'll give a specific example once I get all the way through the different layers of goals. Annual goals. For most people, this is the highest level that they get to when they're thinking about goals, the longest term they like to think about. This is the area where New Year's resolutions come in. Annual goals is the point where you should decide, what am I focusing on now, this year, in this shorter term? Thinking back to the idea from earlier of less but better goals, this is the layer at which we start to actually see that take place. It's the idea that this year I will focus on these 2 or these 3 different areas to make significant progress in that direction, rather than a millimeter of progress in every direction. Short-term goals. So this is where I take my big picture dreams and I break them down into daily actions. So I personally break down my annual goals into quarterly segments, then break that down into monthly segments, which then translate into weekly and daily actions that can land on my calendar. Now, some people like to take this top-down method and flip it to become a bottom-up method. So they start thinking about their ideal day, what they want their actual tangible daily life to look like right now, and then work up from there. Whatever works for you is totally fine. So I want to try to give you a concrete example here. Obviously, this varies so much depending on what your goal is. So for example, if my lifetime artistic goal was to paint a masterpiece, well, then I need to start working down to what are daily actions I can take today to work me towards that. So thinking down from this lifetime goal, my 10-year goal would be get one of my paintings into a national art show. I might even work backwards from there and say, between 10 years and 1 year, there's a lot of specific steps I can take at becoming a master of this craft. So I might list out by, year 1, I'm just learning painting. Year 2, I'm getting better at painting, but I'm not a master yet. Maybe it's year 3, maybe I apprentice with someone who is a master painter. Maybe year 4, I'm starting to apply to different art societies and get involved in that community, and so on and so forth. So this year, my goal is just to get a lot of reps in on painting. So I might say I want to have finished 25 paintings this year. Now, stepping down from our annual goals to our more tangible goals, quarterly goals, I don't really know what my Q3 and Q4 are gonna look like because I'm just learning this skill. And so my goal for quarter 1 is to attend weekly painting classes. Breaking this down into monthly goals, this could be actually signing up for a class, getting some of the basic tools I'll need, figuring out what medium I want to pursue within painting. So now I want to talk about the actual method for setting goals within this greater structure. There are 2 methods I want to talk about today. There are a ton of different methods on how to set goals. These 2 I feel are pretty reflective of how different people's brains work, but obviously adjust according to your own needs. SMART goals. Most of us have heard about SMART goals in some context. Often they're used in academic and corporate environments for goal setting. There's a bunch of research that says these are a good way to set goals in these environments. I've used SMART goals to set my own personal goals for years, but honestly, they've been talked about on the internet ad nauseum. I don't need to spend very much time on them. For the sake of brevity, I want to give one quick demonstration. If our goal is, I want to walk more, we can turn that into a SMART goal. So specific, I want to walk 10,000 steps a day, every day for a month. Measurable, is this measurable? Well, yes. Did you walk 10,000 steps a day or not? Achievable. Is this achievable considering my current resources and constraints? Do I have enough time for this? And what trade-offs will I need to make? Relevant. This goes back to the framework we were talking about earlier. Does this bring me closer to my life goals in a big picture context, or is this just a side quest? Time bound. Wait, which month am I going to walk 10,000 steps a day in? So now that our goal has gone through the SMART system, it went from I want to walk more to I will walk 10,000 steps a day every day during the month of March. So there are two big issues with using SMART goals in a personal context. Number one is the achievable part. SMART goals can be so boring. They're not incredibly inspirational, and in and of themselves, they are not motivating. Second, SMART goals are set up for an environment with accountability inherently built in. And when we're using them in a personal context, we don't have that accountability built in immediately. And so they need to live within a system. And that is what we're going to talk about next. The how to build a system around your goals for actually achieving them. But first, I want to talk about this other framework, hard goals. I've been told that these work well for people whose brains function differently than mine. I don't see the appeal of this, but that is just how my brain works. This stands for heartfelt. These goals should be deeply resonant with your emotions, values, and passions. Instead of choosing a goal that seems practical but uninspiring, the idea here is to focus on one that excites you and aligns with your core values. Animated. Visualizing your goals vividly, dream a little bit. This dream can help you stay committed to these goals. Required. Your goals should feel essential for you to complete. If they don't, then why would you pursue these goals? Difficult. The idea here is that your goals should push you outside of your comfort zone. They shouldn't necessarily be easily achievable. They should be difficult. Now, just to say it, hard goals can be SMART goals and SMART goals can be hard goals. Just depends how you set them up. Now, let's dive in and talk about how do you achieve these goals that you set. Research has shown that we are 2 to 3 times more likely to complete our goals when we have a specific plan for them. How, where, and why. For example, I will write for 1 hour every weekday from 6 to 7 a.m. at my desk. A good goal system has 3 key elements. 1, it has a step-by-step process you can follow on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. 2, it creates a standard operating procedure for when you face an obstacle. If this, then this. 3, it measures your results. We've already spent a lot of time talking about the step-by-step process actually in your goal setting, so I want to move on to the other 2. Let's talk about your standard operating procedure. The first step in this is figuring out what obstacles you will face, including some that you might not know. To be honest, the internet or an LLM might be a great way to start researching this process, especially if you're pursuing a goal that you have never pursued before. Let me illustrate this with an example. So maybe I've walked through the system and I've set a SMART goal of I will exercise for at least 20 minutes and no more than 90 minutes on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at Planet Fitness at 5:15 p.m. Now we need to think about all of the things that will inevitably come up to get in the way of this process. If I have to stay late at work, I will go to the gym as long as it is before 8 p.m. If I'm too hungry to go to the gym, I'll keep a granola bar in my locker at the gym or in my gym bag. If I eat it, I will replace it when I get home from the gym before I do anything else. If I forget something, like my headphones, my shoes, my gym shorts, I will work out anyways unless it violates the gym's rules. If I'm in pain, if my pain is less than a 5, I will do my normal workout. If it's a 5 to 8, I will do a modified workout. And if it is an 8 or higher, I will skip the gym. If I miss a workout, I will not make up that workout, but I will not skip the next one. The beautiful thing with systems like this is that they're flexible and adjustable. So if a new situation comes up that you don't have a standard operating procedure for, you can decide on a standard operating procedure and then add it in to remove that decision further down the line. The final part in this system is measuring your goals. This is so important to keep track of everything from the top of this process all the way down to the daily process of actually living out your goals. I personally like a digital system for keeping track of this. Some people prefer an analog system, so whichever system you prefer is fine. I would recommend a few things though. 1, make sure it's something you are already using that easily integrates into your life. You don't need to add something new on top of this. If you aren't using something yet, choose the one that you are most likely to use. This system does not need to be perfect right away. It just needs to be a place to start. I've personally noticed the more tools I need to use to keep track of different areas of my life, the less likely I am to follow through and use those. The main way I keep tabs on my goals throughout the year is something I call my weekly planning session. This is a 1-hour meeting with myself every week, and this is one of the few things that has truly changed my life. If you're interested in checking that out, that video is on the screen now, and I'll also leave it down in the description. Thanks so much for being here, and we will see you next week.